I invite Professor Shirish Kedare, Director of IIT Bombay, Chief Guest, retired IAS Mr. Vishwanath Giriraj, and Registrar of IIT Bombay, Mr. Ganesh Borkade, to kindly join us on the dais, please. I request Ms. Shama Iyer to kindly join on the dais to read the preamble, please.
नमस्कार, गुड मॉर्निंग। प्रियम्बल या उद्देशिका हमारे भारत के संविधान का सार या निचोड़ है, हम कह सकते हैं। और अंदर जो भी हम देखने वाले हैं, ये पूरा जो गाइड बुक है हमारे लिए, रूल बुक है, उसके जो उद्देश्य हैं और जो लक्ष्य हैं, जो वैल्यूज़ हैं, प्रिंसिपल्स हैं, वो सारा कुछ इसमें है। That is what we will read and take an oath. Hindi is comfortable for everybody? So I think एक हिंदी काफ़ी है, rather than English also. सब खड़े हो जाइए और मेरे बाद रिपीट कीजिए। अटेंशन और दिल पर हाथ रखिए। हम भारत के लोग भारत को एक संपूर्ण प्रभुत्व संपन्न समाजवादी पंथ निरपेक्षक लोकतंत्रात्मक गणराज्य बनाने के लिए तथा उसके समस्त नागरिकों को सामाजिक, आर्थिक और राजनीतिक न्याय, विचार, अभिव्यक्ति, विश्वास, धर्म और उपासना की स्वतंत्रता, प्रतिष्ठा और अवसर की समता प्राप्त कराने के लिए तथा उन सब में व्यक्ति की गरिमा और राष्ट्र की एकता और अखंडता सुनिश्चित करने वाली बंधुता बढ़ाने के लिए दृढ़ संकल्प होकर अपनी इस संविधान सभा में आज तारीख 26 नवंबर 1949 ईस्वी मिति मार्ग शीर्ष शुक्ला सप्तमी संवत 2006 विक्रमी को एतद्वारा इस संविधान को अंगीकृत, अधिनियमित और आत्मर्पित करते हैं। जय संविधान।
Thank you, Mrs. Iyer. I invite Professor Shirish Kedare to kindly address us.
ये 77वें संविधान दिवस को, क्योंकि 49 में पहला संविधान दिवस माना, तो आज 77वां संविधान दिवस है। 76 साल पूरे हुए। इस 77 संविधान दिवस पर सभी को बधाई। और हम सब इस संविधान को मतलब आत्मगत करते हैं, ऐसे हमने पढ़ा। तो मतलब अपने दिल से, अपने आत्मा से उसे मानते हैं और उसे बस ऐसा नहीं कि नियम है इसलिए हम इसे करते हैं, ये हमारे जीवन पद्धति का अंग है। इस तरह से ये संविधान एक तरह से लिखा गया। मतलब लॉ इज़ डिफरेंट, लॉ इज़ बियॉन्ड, बट इट्स डिफरेंट, बट संविधान इज़ बेसिक, ये मेरी जो समझ है। इस अवसर पे माननीय भारत रत्न बाबा साहेब आम्बेडकर जी का स्मरण अत्यंत औचित्यपूर्ण है। और आम्बेडकर जी की ये जो समिति की चेयरमैनशिप से उन्होंने पूरा किया है, इसमें विशेष ये है, जो अपने गिरिराज सर भी बताएंगे, विशेष ये है कि ये कंसेंसस से हुआ है। मतलब एक मत से हुआ है, ऐसा नहीं कि ये बहुमत से हुआ है। अलग 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 200 से भी ज़्यादा लोग थे उसमें, महिलाएं थी, अलग अलग विचारधारा से आए हुए लोग थे, लेकिन सभी ने मिलकर एक मत से इसे लिया है। और ये एक मत पॉलिटिकल नहीं है, मतलब मैं इस पार्टी का हूँ, मुझे आदेश आया इसलिए, ऐसा नहीं। ये लॉजिकली हर एक बात अंबेडकर जी ने सॉर्ट आउट की, निर्वारण किया। किसी की भी कोई भी आशंका है तो उसको एकोमोडेट करना, उसके मुताबिक बदलना, उससे सुधार करना, इस तरह से लॉजिकल कंसेंसस जो सभी इससे आत्मा से, संविधान से आत्मा से तन मन धन से परिचित हुए और उसे अडॉप्ट किया, ये इसकी विशेषता है। ऐसे मैं मानता हूँ, ऐसा शायद कहीं और हुआ नहीं होगा कि ये एक मत से इतनी बड़ी संख्या में 4 लोग बैठे तो भी एक मत होना बहुत बार कठिन होता है। ये 200 से ज़्यादा, तो ये बात भी गिरिराज जी थोड़ा सा बताएंगे इसकी ज़्यादा डिटेल। तो अंबेडकर जी का जो व्यक्तित्व था ये इसका परिणाम है। ऐसे मैं कहूँगा कि वो तो एक अत्यंत बड़े विद्वान थे, अभ्यासु थे, वकील तो थे ही, लॉ के विद्यार्थी रहे, लेकिन वो इकोनॉमिस्ट भी थे। वो तो हम शायद भूल जाते हैं काफ़ी बार कि भारत का रुपया कैसे बटा जाता है, उसमें से कितना हिस्सा बाहर शोषण के रूप में जाता है, इसका भी अध्ययन उन्हें करके उस पर उनकी पीएचडी थी। उनके 2 पीएचडीज थे। और एक बात ऐसी कि उससे आगे जाकर वो समाज से जुड़े हुए थे। ये तो सबसे बड़ी बात है कि समाज में जमीन पे रहने वाले लोगों से उनका संपर्क था, उनका हितचिंतन उनके सामने सतत रहता था। और जो चौथी बात मैं अभी सुबह भी बताया कि किसी भी समय उन्होंने देश हित को बाधा हो ऐसा कदम नहीं उठाया, चाहे उनका खुद का मत अलग हो, उनको कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ करना पड़े, ईगो बीच में आने कभी नहीं दिया। जो देश हित में है, जो सभी निर्णय हैं, आखिरी उनके निर्णय भी जो एक तरह से बहुत प्रेशर्स के अंदर भी लिए गए, लेकिन उसमें देश हित का कहीं भी उन्होंने कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ नहीं किया। अंबेडकर जी का एक व्यक्तिमत्व भारत को खड़ा करने में बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण योगदान देता है। अंबेडकर जी को अभिवादन करके मैं कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाने को बताता हूं, और पुनः एक बार सभी को कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन डे के लिए बधाई।
Thank you, Professor Kedare. I would now welcome Advocate Priyanka Atal, Chief Legal Officer of IIT Bombay, to kindly introduce the guest and say a few words on our Constitution.
Namaskar. Our Honorable Chief Guest, Shri Vishwanath Giriraj Sir, Respected Director Sir, Dear Registrar Sir, Distinguished Deans, dignified faculty members, my supportive colleagues, valued staff, and our dear students. Today, as we gather to celebrate the adoption of our Constitution, we honor a document that is not only the cornerstone of our democracy, but also a moral compass that continues to guide a nation with unwavering clarity and purpose. Before I continue, it is my privilege to introduce our esteemed chief guest, Shri Vishwanath Giriraj Sir, who is a retired IAS officer. He belongs to 1985 batch of IAS, Maharashtra cadre. I must tell you this, that when I was making my notes and as I read this out, I feel privileged. His vast experience and exemplary service makes him a true source of inspiration for all of us. So here are the various positions that Sir held in Government of Maharashtra. Deputy Commissioner of Sales Tax, Additional Collector Pune, CEO Jila Parishad Chandrapur, Additional Tribal Commissioner, District Collector Yavatmal, Director Groundwater and Survey Agency, Joint CEO Khadi and Village Industries Commission, Government of India, Joint MD of Maharashtra State Roadways Corporation, MD of Maharashtra State Finance Corporation, Secretary Rural Employment, Water Conservation, Minor Irrigation and Social Forestry, Secretary Rural Development and Panchayat Raj. His last held position before retirement was as Additional Chief Secretary Finance, Government of Maharashtra, wherein he developed the state budget. Post-retirement, he was the chairman of the State Finance Commission, a constitutional position created under Article 243 of the Constitution by the 73rd and the 74th Amendment. He has also worked in various committees appointed by Government of India, including one on preparing memorandum to the Central Finance Commission. He has worked on the board of companies as independent director and also in the finance committee of Mumbai National Law University. He was the chairman of the committee appointed by the Mumbai Municipal Corporation to address pay issues of various cadres after the 7th Pay Commission. Shri Giriraj Sir has deep interest in rural and tribal issues. He has been working on bamboo as a resource at policy and operational level since 1998 and has chaired various committees for the same. Presently, he is the CEO of the Maharashtra Bamboo Promotion Foundation, a non-profit organization created by Government of Maharashtra and Tata Trust to develop the bamboo sector in Maharashtra. Shri Giriraj Sir is a commerce graduate from Madras University and a law graduate from Mumbai University. Sir is the visionary administrator, a distinguished policy thinker, and a respected champion of constitutional governance. His decades of committed public service, his refined understanding of administrative, ethical, and his unwavering dedication to public welfare makes his presence here truly special. We warmly welcome you, sir, and feel honored to celebrate this important day with you. On 26 November 1949, our Constituent Assembly, under the remarkable leadership of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, gave India a constitution that was far more than a legal document. It was a courageous, compassionate, and forward-looking blueprint for a nation still healing, rebuilding, and aspiring. Crafted with extraordinary clarity and empathy, the Constitution reflected the remarkable foresight of the framers. They designed a document that would remain relevant for generations they knew will never meet each other, a testament to their exceptional vision and deep faith in India's future. And here, we must acknowledge Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, please. We need to be reminded that the Constitution was drafted during one of the most challenging chapters of our Indian history. The country was grappling with the trauma of partition, economic instability, deep social inequalities, and complexities of nation building. Yet, the Constitution Assembly chose hope over fear, unity over division, and justice over expediency. They envisioned an India anchored in the democratic values, strengthened and guided by moral conviction. Hence, on this day, we must recognize the efforts of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar ji and the entire Constituent Assembly and be grateful to them for the same. Our Constitution protects our liberty, dignity, and equality, while reminding us of our profound duty to uphold the values that hold this nation together. As our Chief Justice, Honorable Justice Surya Kant, recently said, the Constitution envisions not just a free society, but a respectful and harmonious one. When we forget that duties are intrinsic to rights, we distort the balance that keeps democracy functional and risk making the Constitution unworkable. These words resonate, at least with me, they deeply resonate. As we speak of our rights, we must also remember our duties. Say, for example, we want to exercise our freedom of speech. We must remain mindful of its boundaries, responsibilities, and consequences. As an academic institution, and especially in my role as the Chief Legal Officer of IIT Bombay, this day holds deep significance. Our responsibility is not merely to follow the Constitution, but to reflect on it. At IIT Bombay, where ideas are shaped, innovations are born, leaders are nurtured, and I feel proud when I say this. Constitutional values form the invisible yet enduring foundation of every effort. Every lecture delivered, every policy framed, every administrative decision taken, and every interaction, whether small or big, creates an ecosystem where constitutional values can either flourish or fade away. So, we remain mindful of our responsibilities and our duties. As educators, administrators, and staff, we indeed strive to embody these values with integrity, humility, compassion, and firmness. It is also important to appreciate how Constitution remains dynamic and adaptable. Over the years, it has grown through amendments, judicial interpretation, but it has evolved and it has stayed relevant for the society. Today, the world presents new and complex challenges: rapid technological advancements, global interconnectedness, climate change, and evolving ethical dilemmas. At this time, at least it surprises me a lot, and I keep wondering whether framers of our constitution could have truly envisaged these transformations, or whether they crafted a document with such a broad and timeless vision that it continues to astonish us today, even today. What is remarkable is that time and again the Constitution has provided a stable and principled framework to navigate every emerging complexity, and its relevance has endured through every season, and every challenge. To conclude, the Constitution of India is not a static document. It is a living promise, a promise of fairness, dignity, and opportunity for every citizen. It calls upon us not only to cherish our rights, but also to honor our duties with equal conviction. As we celebrate this significant day, let us renew our collective commitment to building a just, compassionate, and inclusive India, grounded in kindness. I repeat, grounded in kindness, guided by constitutional wisdom, and strengthened by our shared humanity. With this, I request our chief guest, Shri Vishwanath Giriraj Sir, to address this energetic gathering. Jai Hind. Thank you.
Sarvana Namaskar. Today, Shri Sirish Kedare, Shri Ganesh Borkade Registrar, Madam Priyanka, and all respected members in the dais, as well as participants in this today's program. Today is the November 26 is the day when the Constituent Assembly unanimously adopted the Constitution of India on November 26, 1949. And hence it is remembered and we celebrate it as the Constitution Day. It was formally operationalized after 2 months, January 26, 1950, which we celebrated as Republic Day. I am not a legal expert. I am a career bureaucrat. Much of my working life has been in the field and observing the working of the state at close quarters. So what I'll be talking to you is not too much. I'll be speaking in very simple way without using too much technical words about our constitution, because most of the information relating to fundamental rights, fundamental duties, you all know. You would have read in school, you would have read it many times. I am not going to repeat it. What I am going to do is, I will be touching some aspects of our constitution, because this is a big area. It is almost one semester or 1 year subject. I have to cover it in 20-25 minutes. So the core essence, 2-3 parts I will touch. So I am calling it some aspects of our constitution and how it and its working. It's not only the preparation, how it has operationalized in the last 75 years. That is more important, because I can buy if I may so an analogy, a nice car, it looks very nice. But then when you start running it, all the issues, all these issues comes before us at that point of time. And how we did it? Did we succeed or not? This is the point I'm trying to touch. So I think that will be more interesting for all of you. So essentially, I'll be talking on 2 subjects. The spirit behind the Constitution. The spirit and the vision. You can call it spirit, you can vision behind the Constitution. Number 1, some ways it has worked after 1950 in the last 75 years. Again, I'm not going to touch all. I'll be touching few small things. So you have to connect the dots. As you are aware, this Constitution was prepared by the Constituent Assembly of India for 3 years, 1946 to 1949. Roughly, I'm telling. It was constituted in July 1946. At that time, we were under the British. These were all transition period. In fact, up to 1952 elections, 46 to 52, these are all lot of transition issues were there. So we slowly managed all this very beautifully. Look back at it. These are not easy times. And this constitution was adopted unanimously after intense debate. Intense debate. If you see, there were a lot of discussions, and then it was adopted unanimously. Now, how was this Constituent Assembly constituted? I was looking into it. They were not directly elected by the people, because at that time that arrangement was not there. They were elected indirectly by the provincial assemblies which were in existence in those days. These were in most of the states. These were created by the Government of India Act of 1935. Now, how were the members, legislators, you call them as MLAs, how were they elected? Obviously, they were elected by the people, but at that point of time, there was no universal voting. All adults above 21, later on now it is 18, they did not vote. It was a selected 10 or 20% of the population who had property and who had certain other conditions voted. So, technically, it was a sort of an elite, maybe 15% or 20% of the people voted, elected the state legislature members, who in turn elected the members of the Constituent Assembly. So, it was not universal voting. So, how many members were there? There were about 229 elected by the provinces. 229. Number aage piche hoga. And also the Indian states. You must remember, princely states were also there at that point of time. So, there were huge areas. So, both together created our Constituent Assembly. So, in a sense, you can say that it was an elite, it was elected by the, within quotes, elite body. I'm speaking very carefully, very cautiously. So, when we say nowadays it is fashionable to say elite in a disparaging way. But if you look at history, sometimes this elite can be an intellectual elite, it can be a moral elite, and they can push. If you see the American Constitution, it was created by a selected number of people. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Hamilton, and the famous lines of Thomas Jefferson, you might know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, if you go very deeply, he himself was a slave owner. But he used the word life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But that inspired the liberation of the slaves after 60, 70 years later, when Abraham Lincoln was the President of India. What I am trying to say is, when we look nowadays, this is my personal view, we should not be very harsh on the people on the past. Now, a lot of social media. See, if we are harsh today, we may also be judged very harshly by the next generation. See, we all live under certain circumstances. Under that circumstances, we take a decision. This is my thought. But this has been an inspiration. But these people who created the Constitution of India were great, total commitment to the people of India. Selfless, all the people. This is something we should remember. Now, I will try to look at the Constituent Assembly. Composition of the people. I told you the number. First is, all the parts of India were represented. It was a big country. After partition also it was big. And imagine in those days, communication was much less. So, all the parts of India, both British India and princely states were represented. Second, all the communities, even microscopically small communities were represented in our Constitution, in the Constituent Assembly. And people from all ideologies. I'll try to give you some example. In fact, Grenville Austin, he said it is microcosm, India in microcosm. I used to know, I had a privilege of seeing Father Jerome D'Souza. He was a Jesuit priest. He was a member of the Constituent Assembly. He was very old when I saw. I was in my college days. I studied in a Loyola College, Chennai. I have seen him. Then there were people from the Anglo-Indian community, small community, Sikhs, Muslims, Parsis. Everybody was there. Then not every small group was represented in this Constituent Assembly. That means everybody felt it is our constitution. We have a choice. We are participating in the decision-making process. And interestingly, many had legal background. Dr. Rajendra Prasad was the chairman of the Constituent Assembly. He was a lawyer. Jawaharlal Nehru, again he studied law. Sardar Patel, C. Rajagopalachari, Rajaji, K.M. Munshi, and of course, Dr. Ambedkar was a great jurist. All these people, there are other people also with a different background. Sarojini Naidu, the English poet who wrote in English. Acharya Kriplani, many scholars, some traditional minded people, very sophisticated people, all of them were together in preparing this Constituent Assembly. Maulana Azad was there. And because I think, just I am saying humorously, because many were in the law background, our constitution is also very long because, 300, it's one of the longest written constitution in the world. Now, what were the political ideas which inspired the people of the constitution? What would they have studied in college? I mean, when they were, first is of course, I am telling the political and the general idea. One is of course the ideas of the French Revolution. Fraternity. 3. Liberty, equality and fraternity. This thought, then the working democracy, England, 800 years from the days of Magna Carta, and of course America, which was a new emerging country. These ideals would have greatly inspired all these leaders. Of course, the Indian heritage is also there. I will be touching that also. Then the cultural heritage, the great leaders at that time, Mahatma Gandhi, little earlier Swami Vivekanand, Swami Dayanand Saraswati, Rabindranath Tagore, all these people and many other would have inspired them. So, now when you prepare a constitution, what happens? If you think today, the events around us, last 1 year, 2 years surround us. So when this, as I told you, it took 3 years, 46 to 49. What were the events in the last 10 years, say from let us keep 1935 as a cutoff date. Because these important events shaped, I am telling the spirit of the constitution, shaped the spirit of the constitution. First is the Government of India Act 1935, which gave first level of power to us. In fact, many of the important provisions, especially on the legislative side, also got incorporated in our constitution. The second one is the Second World War. It is considered the bloodiest war in the world, 1939 to 45. At that time, the background, Hitler, he was elected democratically. But then, what happened? The rise of fascism. So, the need for checks and balances, this would have come because you got elected, but then you can turn this side. So this was another thought. Then, during the war, any government, in a crisis, any government takes extraordinary powers to itself. So that is also required. At that time, in a SOS situation, say in a corona, government has to take quick powers when there is an epidemic. Any government, any situation, suppose there is great flood. I have handled such situation. You have to take quick decisions. You have to be, that time certain procedures cannot be followed. So this also would have weighed that there may be in future, while preparing the constitution, a situation where you will have to have certain emergency provisions. So they thought over, all these wise people. So 3. Number 4, post-World War II, the formation of the UN, and most important, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948. During that period, the UN adopted, based on the dignity of human beings. You can just Google and see what are the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. See some of the provisions in the Constitution. So, there is an atmosphere. And then the socialist ideology of economic equality, the Russia, 6 out of 10 intellectuals in India would have been attracted by, not Russia, that is called USSR, USSR, that was also a thought. many had this. Jawaharlal Nehru himself was much influenced by the developments in USSR. That is why later on he promoted the socialist pattern of society. And last, very important, the shadow of partition. So he said, no, our always country should be united together. So this was also a very important criteria in their mind. And last but not least, even as they did all these national and international events, they kept the heritage of India. So that is why the two symbolic things, one is Satyameva Jayate and the Ashok Chakra. So that is all brought into our constitution in our arrangements. Now, what was the spirit behind this I am telling as a backdrop. Now I will come to the core. Spirit behind the founding fathers, who prepared the constitution. Number one, India should be united and strong. So to be united and strong, because what should we do? Number one, all sections of our vast and diverse society should feel it is our constitution. They should. It's not just document. They should feel it. Mara kaya hai. How are you taking? How are you protecting us? Every group will think from their point of view. It may be right or wrong. That is different. But we have to build up consensus. What has happened? They did. I'll tell you 4 or 5 very interesting, and more so those who are socially disadvantaged. First, I'll tell one by one. I went through the document. First is a very, very small community. I don't know whether you have seen such people also. That time in the coastal cities, there was an Anglo-Indian community. So they had great concerns. So there were certain provisions in the constitution. They had 2 MPs also. Up to I think 69 or 70. 2 members of parliament were given to them. Later on, many of them migrated. So that was a very small community which was taken care of. Then during 47-48, the princely Rajas said, we are now giving our kingdom. Sardar Patel, he integrated them into the country, all these princely states. So they had a concern. Then they said, don't worry, we'll give you this arrangement of privy purses. That is, your funds will be protected. So it was incorporated in our constitution, Article 291. It was later on abolished, that is a separate. At that point of time, their concerns were taken care of. 2. Then, Article 26, religious freedom. Not only that, every denomination thereof, they use as panth. See, because certain words cannot, religion means what? So some people have many definitions. So they said any denomination thereof, small groups. So that is specifically mentioned in Article 26. Then protection of minorities, Article 30. Not only minority could be even linguistic minorities. They can run educational institutions. This is taken care of by Article 30. Then certain areas were around the forest. They were very far away. They had certain specific issues. This is the area known as scheduled areas. If you see the constitution, this is Article 244. That is being taken care of. And there are certain provisions relating to certain classes. Article 330, that the reservation in the seats to the legislature and parliament. So all concerns were taken care of while preparing this, our great constitution. Now, not only the certain classes or communities were taken care of, regions were taken care of, the local aspirations, how we had a federal structure. That means states, everything is not with center, there are certain areas earmarked for the states. So that way, it provides for balance of powers. So another thing, based on the European experience and all that, there is a famous quotation of Lord Acton, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So there should be checks and balances. So that is inbuilt in, there is a legislature, there is a judiciary, there is an executive. So there are various provisions where each is having some checks and balances as they operate. That is the beauty of democracy. And most important, it should be flexible. That is okay, in 1950 we adopted. But what about emerging situation? I'll be talking on that. So you had provision for amending the constitution, but you had to follow a certain procedure. You cannot just pass it like any other act. There are certain provisions. And most important, this constitution was very progressive. We don't say this. At one stroke, we gave universal voting rights to the entire population of India, about 21 at that point of time. In Europe, you study the history of Europe, you study the countries, it took 70, 80 years. First they will give for another category. Then they will give for women. You see how women got, many of them got in 1910 and 1920 in Europe. So sometimes we underestimate our country, our achievements. This is at one stroke, universal voting rights was given in our constitution, which took hundreds of years in so-called progressive Europe or Western countries. Please remember this. So it was a very, very, even other people are saying, oh, in India you are going to give so much. So we will manage. First we will give it, then we will handle the situation. Now, I will go to this. I have explained to you the spirit of the constitution, consensus, taking care of everybody's needs and concerns. Now it lived experience. This is very, very interesting. And in fact, as I started looking into it for this, I myself learned a lot of new things. See, okay, constitution was adopted in 1950. But what was the biggest challenge politically from 1947 to 1970? At that time, India was an agricultural country, rural country, 80 to 90% we were rural. What was number one problem? Zameen. 2 biga zameen hai, sir, I want 3 biga. So, land reforms. If you study every state, there will be a Kisan Paksha parties. Politically, Maharashtra you had, in Tamil Nadu you had some farmers party. And there were also some farmer leader who was in the Constituent Assembly also. There was a person in Andhra, from Andhra, called N.G. Ranga. So, varied persons were there, and everywhere land reforms, zameen paije. What were the demands? There were 3 or 4 demands. Number one, zamindari abolition. Zamindari is not a problem maybe in Maharashtra, but it was a big problem in UP, in Bihar and many other states. So, number one agenda, zamindari abolish karo. Political requirements, A. B, cool qaida, protection of tenancy rights. I am cultivating for 50 years, but I am not the owner. Mala suraksha paije. I want protection. Number 2. Agenda number 3, you have too much land, you give me some land. That is known as land ceding. Especially the communist areas, they were pushing this very strongly. So what happened? All these land reforms were challenged in the court, saying it affects because at that time fundamental property, it was also right to property and hold property was also a fundamental right at that point of time. I am telling in 50s and 60s. There are 2 other challenges of the government of that day. Number 1, I told you about land related. Number 2, land acquisition. We want dams. They are called temples of modern India. But if you want dams, you have to acquire somebody's land. Otherwise, if you want dam, then only you will get irrigation. So there were 2, see, we always think the fight is between good and bad. No, it is always between 2 good issues. We call it dharma sankat. Kai karaiche. See, it's only in cinema you have good and hero and villain. It doesn't happen in life. It is always 2 options we are there which we should take. So land acquisition, there were people who were affected. The third one was nationalization. In 1950, today we call it LIC, but LIC was nationalized only in 1950s. Coal mines were nationalized in 1950s. Banks were nationalized in 1969. So whether it is land reform, whether it is nationalization, all were legally challenged. This is the point I am trying to tell you, quoting some section of our constitution. So, therefore, they challenged the legislature. No, the government cannot pass this law as per the constitution because this violates this section of the constitution. Now, somehow all this got resolved. By and large, the legislatures were upheld, certain amendments were passed, and we passed through this challenging stage of the first 20 years of our country. Now, whether it is right or wrong is different, but we could manage that through a process, a democratic process. One of the very interesting case was known as the Keshavananda Bharati case. There again he questioned, how can government do because it violates my fundamental right. The Supreme Court said in public interest you do, but they said you cannot change the basic structure of the Constitution. But now what is basic structure of the Constitution is still kept open. So you can interpret it the way you want depending on the situation. This is a very open-ended question. I am not going into it. It's a very legal issue. Okay, so that one stage is passed. Then there was an emergency. Then there was, again, it went away. Then there was a lot of utsag in the country about democratic rights and all that. I remember then magazines like India Today, Sunday, they used to write what is known as investigative journalism. That was very popular in the 80s. So that time what happened, there was one lady, journalist, I can even mention her name was Neerja Chowdhury. She's still there, she writes. In the 70s, bonded labor was abolished. Bonded, I can't repay my debt, then you have to work with me for my life. So the bonded labor was abolished. But then she went and investigated. She found after abolition also, quietly these people are still working because they didn't know how to get another work. They were so poor, so weak. Then she wrote an article. This was somehow taken note of the Supreme Court at that point of time. Then Justice Bhagavati passed a suo motu order, something around that. He said not only Article 21 expanded to 23, that is not only you should now have a right of life and liberty, but also the state has to rehabilitate you. You cannot leave us midway. This is something the spirit of his order. Then there was somebody wrote a postcard about the under trials in Bihar. Then somebody wrote about some prisoners were blinded in one place. So all this in the 80s and created what is known as the public interest litigation. Today, this word you hear again and again and again. It started in 90s. Writ petition is different, but they say, I am not earlier what is known as a locus standi. Why you should file? It is not you are not concerned. No, I am filing this in public interest. So this is the PIL started. So it widened the definition of constitution, and generally two renowned judges, Justice Bhagavati and Justice V.R. Krishna here, are credited with the whole jurisprudence around this public interest litigation. So this is on the emerging needs. Now another thing happened, as economy grew, population grew, there was a lot of pressure on our forest and the environment. So 1980s के बाद ये जरा मोटा सुनामी सारखे झालेला आहे, मोठा इश्यू. नैसर्गिक संपत्ती, natural wealth is under a lot of pressure. Pollution, water pollution, air pollution. There was a lawyer called M.C. Mehta. He filed a number of writ petitions in those days, PIL. And then both the government of the day, for example, environment and forest were taken from the state list to the concurrent list. Then they passed a lot of acts. Again, they were all challenged. And a new dimension of protecting the environment, that is individual rights versus samuhik social requirements, again this challenge was there. So when a society is there, these issues come daily. Then Forest Rights Act. It's very interesting. Normally our constitution only recognizes the state or the individual, but the Forest Rights Act recognizes communities around the forest, the traditional communities. So, and one more thing happened in this process. The fundamental rights started getting expanded or contracted depending on the situation by the judiciary. Now, whether it is appropriate, I am not going into the subject, but this is a fact. So, sometimes it will be expanded by the honorable judiciary, sometimes it will get contracted. Next, one more example, the challenge to the constitution, what is known as the federal structure. So you might be knowing there is a provision for president rule, that is Article 356. So if you see from 1957 when it was put in Kerala, number of presidents rule were there. Some were genuinely they could not form a government, so president rule was imposed. But for various reasons, I am not going into the political issues. So but if you see, prepare the list of president rule in India, After 94, suddenly it has decreased. Why? There is a very important court order called IIT Bombay case, when the judiciary said you should follow certain procedures. So there was a check and balance again in this procedure. So the executive were put certain restraints. One more issue is our constitution. As I told you, there is a balance between three arms of the state: judiciary, executive and legislature. There is a delicate balance. Sometimes one is strong, sometimes one is little, then that balance gets settled in a long term. In the short term, there may be issues. Earlier, legislatures were very strong. A lot of legislature deposed. During emergency, executive overrided every other procedure. Now, after 90s, the trend seems to be a very strong judiciary. But the pendulum is swinging in the long term. This is all I want to say. Now, I wanted to tell about the Constitution, universal. Since I am a bureaucrat, I should recollect some great people also. That is I have to pay tributes to my elders. The elections. There is an election commission. Okay, you say everybody has to vote. How do you do it? So first 1952, when the first elections were to be held, it was a daunting task. Please imagine our achievements. That's what I am trying to tell you. There was a gentleman called Sukumar Sen. He was the first election commissioner of India. Now people were illiterate. How do you know they have voted? They invented something known as an indelible ink. That is a very unique innovation of India. No other country had this type of big. Then people didn't know the names. They can't read the symbols. This is my Pakshi Chinna, aeroplane Chinna. All this was started. These were very, very Indian innovations. We are continuously solving problems, but we are not conscious of it. This is what I am trying to say. So you see indelible ink, how it developed, how they supplied the logistics. Then in 1990, there was another person called T.N. Seshan. He again strengthened the election system by various tightening up the procedures. You cannot, certain restraints on the ruling group, whatever, till the elections are over. And one more thing he did, I'm telling you a little humorously because I was working in the field as a election officer. Before that, you will be laughing. The election paper booth, the paper at that time, this EVM was not there. The names will be arranged alphabetically. Suppose Mr. Ramesh is the candidate. I'm just giving as an example. Mr. Ramesh. Let us keep yes Ramesh. They will deliberately keep another candidate called yes Ramesh so that to confuse the people. And sometimes in VIP constituencies, they will keep another name like that. Somewhere somebody they will pick up. So 6 or 7 Ramesh will be there and it will be arranged alphabetically. Number one. Another tactic is they will keep, if even one independent candidate dies, the election will be countermanded, stopped. So they will keep somebody on the deathbed as a candidate so that election gets. This has happened. It may in MLA election, in Nagarpalika election, because they follow copy. Number 3, non-serious candidates. Who are not serious. I'll tell you a very funny example. There is South India, Madurai mein, this fellow had a small hotel or restaurant. But he wanted to name in the newspaper. I am not exaggerating because that time, mera naam, everywhere it should come in local, more so in the local newspaper, Marathi newspaper. So he will go to Rai Bareli, Indira Gandhi's constituency. He didn't know a word of Hindi. He is from Tamil Nadu. He will catch the train, go there, give some money to 2 people. Only 2 people should, second his name and recommend his name. He will go there and he will go to all the VIP constituencies, put his name, and the next train he will come back. He got 4,000, 5,000 votes. This is very standard. So Seshan reformed this whole thing. What did he said? The candidates should be arranged in the first national parties, then state parties, then independents, number 1. Number 2, if non-serious candidate, the independent candidates were called non-serious candidates. If that person dies, then the election is not countermanded. Only if the national or state parties, they have given some checklist, then only the election is countermanded. Then recommendation, at least 100 people should, give your name. So at that time, there was I'm just telling a humorous thing. I'll tell it in Marathi because I was, many people should understand. I was a collector, and this word code of conduct is called Achar Samhita in Marathi. So every word had code of conduct. So one independent came to sign before me, before you have to sign before the election officer, returning officer for the parliamentary 1996. He came with his followers. He filled the form. No, I think his followers filled the form. He had to sign before me. Then somebody were there with some photograph. That is very important. So he said, he is above 40, he wears spectacles. Sir, मी चष्मा टाकू का? मी said, त्याच्यासाठी कोणती आचारसंहिता नाही आहे, तुम्ही टाकू शकता. So I still remember. So, but limited point is, this whole thing was streamlined by session. Then one more thing came, EVM, which is much talked about. You'll be interested to know it did not start. Again, a credit to India. It started in few constituencies in Kerala because it was the area with the highest literacy. Then in 20 years, they expanded. This is again a very important change. The technology is from Bharat Electronics. And do you know where the design is from? Yes, Professor A.G. Rao and team, IDC, IIT. I am proud to say that I know him. He was an emeritus professor. I think few years back he resigned. He retired emeritus professor. It is from IIT, IDC. Just like the rupee symbol also. Okay. One more thing about constitution. We say there is always group A consensus. Our director was mentioning GST. Do you know when it started? It took 25 years for consensus to build. In 1990s, a committee was appointed to look into GST under the chairmanship of Dr. Ashok Mitra, Finance Minister, Government of West Bengal, Communist Party, under Jyoti Basu. So what I am trying to say is, so many people came together. What we see is not fact. Then 25 years, committees working together, because for GST you need approval of the state as per the constitution. Just Delhi cannot pass. Then 2019 in Maharashtra, I had the opportunity to, as an officer, when the legislature approved, as a special session approved the GST. And from 2018 or 19, it is law of the land. So then one more change. 73 and 74, the constitution expanded. They said, okay, state, center, the state, then the local bodies. 94, another dimension, that is the panchayats and the nagarpalikas. If you see all these Western countries, very progressive countries, they had very strong local bodies. They have financially very resourceful. So then it was given a constitutional status by suitably amending the constitution. Earlier there was only acts of the state legislature. There are one or two things I want to tell. I am slowly ending my talk because I just wanted to give you a flavor how we are handling the situation. It is not, we have handled it very well, many things. But in the long term, financial transfer of resources. So where ultimately you need vitamin M, money. And where does the money go? It is the government of India. It's not today, from 1950, because the tax structure is such. More money comes to the center. So from that day, they created Article 280, that is the Finance Commission of India. It's a very important aspect. Normally people don't talk because it is too technical. Amcha vishya nahi hai. But that transfers monies to the states. And if you see the reports of this Finance Commission, they have contributed greatly to the unity, support of the state governments, because the responsibility for health, education are with the state governments. Now, more or less 2 or 3 points. So I just showed you the spirit of how it has worked. We have worked many things in the long term very beautifully. It takes time in India. Operational challenges. What are really when you do? 1 or 2 points. Excessive litigation. Anything, if you go, there are lawyers to interpret. They can talk excellently on this side or that side. If you engage ex-lawyer, we will talk. So what has happened? There are many things open to multiple interpretations. There have been cases. I'll explain which cases there. Cases will be filed in 20 high courts, and different opinions will be given. then they will all be taken up to the Supreme Court. This is a challenge. We have to address it someday in a suitable way. Then they are taken together. If you take the medical, if IIT means PhDs. Of course, you are a technical institute, though you have a social science department also. But if there are 10 or 15 people can do PhD on one subject, court cases relating to medical admission, court cases relating to, ultimately now NEET has come. But before that, at least my understanding is something like 500 to 600 cases, writ petitions on this subject. I know a relative of mine, he was preparing for the exam. Next day was his exam. I am telling 10, 12 years back. He was ready, well prepared for his MD exam, I think. Morning newspaper comes, the entire thing stayed. No exams. Again, 3 months ke baad karo. For some technicality by some court order. I am telling 10, 15 years back, not now. There are also practical issues which needs visit, which I saw, that is Article 112. It says, when you submit the budget, expenditure on capital, on revenue items and capital items, revenue items should be shown and other items separately. What does it mean? It looks very technical for you. That means how much you invest on capital items should be shown separately. But now, all revenue expenditure is not bad. This is again important in when the constitution was prepared. I think it needs a revisit because we spend huge money in the state government on health and education. This is human capital. We think capital means only buildings and structures. No, education is human capital. So these are some areas which needs a lot of thought. I don't know whether I am taking too much time or I can explain few minutes. Yeah. See, what happens is, it's not at the higher level, at the operational level also issues come. And much of it, see, for ordinary people like you and me, these are big things, constitution, then there is act, rules. But Dainandini life, how does it affect? I'll tell you where it happens. A lot of little bigness is not there at the operational level. I was in the Khadi and Village Industries Commission. Like, in every organization you have the conduct and discipline rules. So there we didn't have a proper one. So I copied it from Government of India, conduct and which is applicable to 4 million people, and tested. I copied exactly, and instead of Government of India, I put, being an autonomous organization like IIT, I put the word KVIC. Sent it to Government of India. The ministry cleared, it went to Law and Judiciary Ministry because they also had, wahan pada hua 15 din, 1 mahine. I said, what is happening? I went to the Deputy Secretary. I said, why it is with you? He made here changes, here. I said, why did you make changes? I have copied ditto. You cannot change it. Even the comma I have copied. How you can do? No, sir, the file has come to me. I have to show my presence. I have to write something. Why? Another very funny incident, I'll tell you, you'll connect it very easily. Why I'm telling all this is, in the Pune, I was additional collector. When I went, there was a big queue. I was also new to this service. I said, ye kya queue? No, sir, in one river, we will call it B river. It's 80 kilometers. The farmers have complained that they are mining, the sand. Therefore, water level is going down. So they complained to the then CM. So in good intention, he has banned the completely sand extraction from the river to help the farmers. But many people also want the sand for construction of houses. What will they do? They have to come for permit quota license to my office. There was a big queue. I said, this is inviting trouble. If you got permit quota license, you know what happens. So then I said, I thought you cannot ban the entire river. We should find a solution. I had a mining officer. This officer, I said, you please identify 10 or 15 points where most vulnerable. Then we will prepare a report. And we will say we should not ban the entire river, but 15-20 vulnerable points, you please. We prepared a report and sent to the Mantralaya. Wahan pada. It was idling for 15 days, 20 days, 25 days. I was also very young. I was little hesitant to go to. There was one joint secretary, madam. Let us call Madam J. So I said, madam, file pada hua hai. This is in interest I have done. She said, theek hai. Again, I went after 1 month. No movement. Third time, I think she took concern. I am coming again and again. She said, sir, नदी म्हणजे काय वाळू म्हणजे काय थोडा समजून सांगा. Because what is river, what is sand? Please explain to me clearly. I am not able to understand your proposal. Then I realized this lady is from Borivali for 28 years. She know only 9:48 fast, 9:20. Throughout her life, she has not seen this. I'm not blaming her, because in life, many of this we don't do with a malified intention. We don't know and we are not honest to say we want to know. So many of these misunderstandings happen of operational level because of ignorance, not with a malified intention. Once I explained to her, the file got cleared next day. These are small operational issues. So there are many issues in the future. One is high-tech, because democracy is highly becoming sophisticated. I will not go into deep because I have taken a lot of your time. So I will summarize very quickly. Our constitution, it has helped the unity of India. It has helped the marginalized section of the society. It has managed different aspirations of the people. For example, I wanted to mention this, the Aadhaar. Somebody filed a writ petition. It is encroaching, he is a judge, retired, it is encroaching into my privacy. This is a Western concept of in India, poor people have no privacy. They said, please take note of me. I want an identity for welfare measures. Please try to understand, the perception varies. No privacy. I want an Aadhaar card. Without, I am migrating here, I am migrating there, I am migrating there. I want an Aadhaar. So the perceptions also change depending on your background. So it has managed different aspirations. It has helped the socially and economically disadvantaged. It has helped come out of very tough situations in the last 75 years. So let us remember with gratitude to our founding fathers, the people who prepared the constitution, and let us live up to it, and not in both in letter and spirit. And I would like to end with a quotation by Dr. Ambedkar. See, the constitution is a document, whether ultimately it depends on our character. If we want to do mischief, we can do any time. If we want to be good, then documents are. This is what he said. Perhaps few days before the adoption of the constitution, he spoke in the Constituent Assembly. This is what he said. I feel that the constitution is workable. It is flexible. And it is strong enough to hold the country together both in peacetime and in wartime. Indeed, if things go wrong under the new constitution, the reason will not be we had a bad constitution. What we'll have to say that man was vile. Vile means mischievous. म्हणजे माणूस बरोबर नसेल आम्ही काही करू शकत नाही. This was the spirit of this. With these words, I conclude my talk. Thank you.
I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to our chief guest, Mr. Vishwanath Giriraj, for being with us today. Thank you, sir, for your valuable time. I also extend my thanks to our director, Professor Shirish Kedare, Registrar Mr. Ganesh Borkadiji, Advocate Priyanka Atal, and Ms. Chama Iyer. I sincerely appreciate my colleagues from various offices for coordinating and organizing this function. Now there will be a mass singing of Vande Mataram. Post that, I invite everyone to join for the refreshments outside the foyer. I request everyone to rise for mass singing of Vande Mataram.